Now we have rain coming right now, and that's a really good thing, especially when we put so much into our habitat from trees, shrubs, conifers, food plots, switchgrass, pollinator, everything we do. So rain is a welcome sign, but we put a lot of effort into this property. And, you know, I talk about we put 100 days of work in a year. But what if it's all for naught? You know, there's so many out there that spend lots of money, lots of time on the property with a complete lack of results. Well, what are results? Just because you see a mature buck during the middle of the night, is that a good thing? Just because you have dozens of does and fawns on your property every single day that you see, is that a good thing? I want to talk about some signs that I see that your property is doing well. And number one, I just want to get this out right off the bat, is I want to know your daylight to nighttime ratio of pictures. And what I mean by that is your mature buck pictures. You should have at least 50% of the mature buck pictures you see during the daylight or around daylight hours, even if it's a half hour after dark, compared to middle of the night. Now, this also depends on timing for the year, because if you're seeing a lot of bucks during the daylight during the summertime, but not in the fall, you're doing a bad job. This only counts to that time period during the fall. Now, Dylan made me get out of the rain, the pouring rain, something about cameras and lenses and electronics, something like that.
Yeah, expensive rig.
Yeah. We were under an apple tree, but it could have got struck by lightning at any time. So anyways, you know, number one is that pick ratio of daylight to dark. Number two is how many overall bucks are you seeing for the year? This isn't a sex ratio thing necessarily, like a biological sex ratio. I want to see you, and what we want on our property, on the best well-managed properties out there, if you added up all the bucks you have, it doesn't matter if it's a spike or the biggest, oldest buck in the neighborhood, you're going to see about twice as many bucks over the course of an entire hunting season as you are does and fawns, compared to does and fawns. And so your does and fawns are stable. They're the stable portion of the population. They're there all the time. Bucks are not. Their home range is 5 or 6 times greater. So the best parcels are going to attract the most bucks in a given period of time. And if you're only attracting those bucks at night, then you're not going to get the majority of the bucks in the area, especially the older age class, because if they don't want to go onto your property until after dark, why are they going to go on there during the daylight? Why are they going to go on there at all? Their fall range is established somewhere else. So they're not looping around your property as much as you would like them to be, and they're not going to really at all. So very, very critical to look at that number. Now I'd say a passing property would be about 1 buck for every 1 doe or fawn, again, throughout the year. That would be okay, but I really want to see twice as many bucks. So out here, we'll see 20, 25 does and fawns on an annual or a daily basis during October, November. In October, November, again, this is the only time it matters. Who cares what you're doing in July and August, September? That'll give you a failing grade if you're seeing this at that time. What I want to see is that you're seeing the majority of those bucks during October, November. Again, at least 50% are during the daylight, and that's really critical. And I want to see about twice as many bucks as does and fawns. We see about 40 to 45 different bucks here on the property. And the Wisconsin property we had for a long time is 30, 35, 15 does and fawns. And so you want to see those ratios, and it's something that you can look at to say, you know, how am I doing on my property? A third and really important thing is, you know, and this goes back to your hunting skill too, so that's part of it. You can't have a great hunt without a great herd. You should be shooting because only 5% of all landowners out there are actually attracting a quality herd during the hunting season. Mature bucks only live on about 5% of properties in the neighborhood, in the habitat. So what's really critical is that you're shooting those bucks on average about 80% of the time over a 10-year period. You can do that because very few people in the neighborhood are doing a good job, and it's not being condescending, it's just a fact. There's only about 5% of all properties, you could even say the 3% club, where people are actually not only building a good herd, but actually hunting it well. So part of that comes down to hunting decisions, but you're not going to have a good herd if you're making bad hunting decisions, because you're going to spook those deer off your property. So that's a really good sign. If you have a good herd, that means you're probably hunting well, you're not spooking deer, you're not overhunting or overpressuring your food sources. And that's that number 3 way that we really look at, how am I doing well Again, going back to that pick ratio, the number of bucks you see for does, and your accomplishments as a hunter as far as shooting the highest percentage of older bucks about 80% of the time over a long year, a long period of time. You can't say you're doing a great job if you never shoot anything, and I'm not saying you have to be a killer. The point is that, no, maybe you don't hunt, so we can throw that number 3 out the window, but that's really important to consider for how you're doing a good job. And I'll throw in number 4, the number of does and fawns you see. When you have a lot of does and fawns keen on your property during the summertime, that's probably a sign you're going to do very poorly, because a lot of does and fawns on the property during the summer, you've established traditional fawning grounds. Fawning grounds are bad on your property, they're good on someone else's property, because fawns and does that are here today are here to stay. And that can be a big problem when you're trying to attract bucks, because when you have too many does and fawns in your property going in the rut, you severely limit the number of bucks that will potentially be on your property. And if you're limiting the number of bucks, that doesn't come in the form of young bucks, it comes in the form of older bucks, the most mature bucks in the neighborhood. They will learn to avoid your property because you have too many does and fawns. Rest assured, wherever they're at, there's going to be does and fawns. There's going to be more of a balance. And on the flip side, if you're seeing a lot of bucks during the summertime, that is a bad sign for your property, because most properties that have the majority of the mature bucks you're going to see for the year during the summertime are not going to be that influencing property in the neighborhood, because mature bucks need a completely different type of habitat during the fall that they need during the summer. Really important to consider that. So if you go through those 5, that'll keep you on par. A couple things not to do, 3 things you should be doing. And I know a lot of you have a lot of questions out there. Again, I try to answer as many as we can down in the comment section below. But what I'd really like you to do is, we have a phone number that's in the description. You can call us and leave a voicemail. And we have a podcast that we'll be featuring every week. We're bringing the podcast back to Jeff and Jen and Friends Talk Deer. And we'll bring that back. And it's really going to be based on your questions. So we'll make those questions, we'll use the ones that are relevant to the time period, and we'll pick the most detailed, maybe the most challenging ones. And the cool thing is, I don't pick the questions, Jen and Jesse do. So they'll pick some ones to try to stump me, challenge me. That's okay. But we'd really love to hear from you. We'll play that recorded question on our podcast. We'll be featured. We just want you to leave your name and number. And then Jesse's going to try to get a hold of you too, because if you can actually call in with that question during the time period of our podcast, that's even better. So we'll try to set a couple of those up every year, or every week when we have our podcast. So check out the information for that in the description below, and we'd love to listen to you and discuss whitetail strategy, all things whitetail. Depending on the time of the year, that will determine the topics. But we'd love to discuss those with on an upcoming issue of our episode of our podcast.